Today, we will examine the role of the sender and the receiver in communication. If this video is helpful, consider hitting the like button. Communication is the transmission of messages between the sender and the receiver. The sender is the person who creates the message and transmits it, whereas the receiver usually reads or sees or listens to the message and interprets the meaning of the message. Some images will follow this slide, and I hope the images will help you understand the concept of the sender and the receiver better. After this, we will examine the roles of the sender and the receiver. So let's proceed to the images. Here is the first image. This is a man delivering a presentation in an office. In this situation, the presenter is the sender and the people listening to him are the receivers. Let's look at the second image. Let us assume this is a college professor teaching her college class. So the professor who is teaching the class is the sender. Her students who are listening to her are the receivers. The students sitting on the other side are also receivers. This is the third image. This is a mother talking to her child. In this situation, the mother is the sender, the child is the receiver. The mother says something to the child, and what she says is a message. So let's assume she says, "Always keep your mask on." The child listens to the mother and she responds and says something in return. Let's assume the child says, "Yes, Mama." This is feedback. Okay, so I hope you have understood the basic concept of the sender and the receiver. And now let us proceed further to see the actual responsibilities of the sender and the receiver. Let's examine the role of the sender first. Speaking broadly, the sender's role largely revolves around two things. First, creating and transmitting the message. Second, receiving feedback and acting on the feedback. But this is a simple way of putting things. If you investigate further, you will realize that the role of the sender comes with many responsibilities. Here is a list of responsibilities that the sender is accountable for. First, we will read through this list. After this, we will go through each responsibility in detail. Let us begin. First, the receiver has to be clear about the purpose of communication. Next, the receiver has to pick the language to compose the message in. After that, the receiver has to actually compose or create the message. Next, he has to pick the mode of transmission. After that, the receiver has to make arrangements for feedback. Then, the receiver has to accept the feedback. And finally, action needs to be taken on the feedback. So first, the sender has to be clear about the purpose or intention of the message. Why are you communicating right now? For what purpose? What is your objective? Do you want to inform someone about something? Do you want to reprimand someone? Do you want to sell a product? To acquire a new client? To make a new friend? To express an emotion like love? What is the purpose behind the communication? This is something that the sender has to be clear about. Knowing the purpose of communication is important because it helps to select the correct words, the correct length of message and sentence patterns, and also tone. For example, if the purpose of communication is to reprimand or scold, if you want to scold someone and if you understand that that is your purpose, your tone has to be strict and firm. Your sentences have to seem no nonsense and to the point. The sentences also have to explain the rules and consequences, and also future expected behavior has to be clearly stated. So this is why knowing the purpose of communication before communicating is really important. It helps you arrive at the correct tone and the correct content. After defining the objective or purpose of communication, the next thing that the sender is expected to do is pick the most appropriate language to encode the message in. This simply means select the best language to create or compose the message. I live in a multilingual society. People around me are familiar with at least 3 and sometimes 5 different languages. This is very common where I live. Let's assume I am very familiar and fluent in Portuguese. Now, just because I am very proficient in Portuguese, I cannot use this as a language to create my messages in. No, communication does not work this way. Instead of encoding or creating a message in Portuguese, I have to select a language that my receiver, that is my reader or my listener, is familiar with. I have to pick a language that my receiver, that is my reader or my listener, can easily understand. The sender also has the option of choosing between verbal or non-verbal communication or verbal or non-verbal language when he or she is creating the message. For example, instead of actually saying hello, the sender could just choose to wave a hi. Messages can be composed entirely of words. For example, a resignation letter. Usually a resignation letter is entirely made up of words, sentences and paragraphs. However, messages can also be composed without words, without sentences or paragraphs. A sender might choose to use a combination of non-verbal signs and signals to compose a message. A traffic signal is an example of this. Through the traffic signal, the RTO department or the traffic police department or whichever department is in charge of regulating and controlling traffic is actually passing on messages. So red means stop, green means go, and yellow is a warning that the sign is about to turn red. Messages can also be created using a combination of words, images and videos. For example, this particular video uses a combination of words and images. So there are different ways that senders can compose or create messages. They can use language and at the same time they can use non-verbal signals, images, videos, etc. to supplement the language. After this, the sender must select the mode of transmission. The sender may choose to use the internet and convey the message via email. The sender might transmit the message over the telephone network. He or she may choose to interact face to face, or the message might be sent across using the postal service. The sender is expected to make arrangements to collect feedback. You may have noticed YouTubers asking their audience, asking their viewers to like a video or subscribe to their channel. This is a form of collecting feedback. If after watching a video, many viewers hit the like button or many audience members subscribe to the channel, it is a form of providing positive feedback to that YouTuber. Again, these days there are many online services that offer potential customers a 1-month trial period. After the trial period, if people actually sign up for the service, that also is a form of positive feedback. You can also create a feedback form that audience members can fill in before leaving the venue, or you can arrange for a question and answer session. These are common ways of collecting feedback. The next responsibility is to accept the feedback. Senders should be prepared for both negative and positive feedback. Learn from genuine constructive feedback. Use the genuine constructive criticism to improve your communication. At the same time, be smart enough to understand that all feedback is not constructive or even genuine. Sometimes people are mean in their comments just because they like being nasty and horrible. Don't let it rattle you. If required, take action after receiving feedback. You may need to repeat some part of the message. You may need to compose the message again in a different language, or you may also need to include additional information, additional examples, etc., so that the receiver is able to understand the message better. You may need to arrange for another question and answer session or another meeting to clear doubts or answer queries raised by the receivers. Now, let us begin examining the role of the receiver. Here is a list of responsibilities that the receiver is accountable for. First, the receiver has to be attentive and receive the message. Next, the receiver has to decode the message. If something was unclear in the message, the receiver has to seek clarification. After that, the receiver has to provide feedback. Let us begin investigating the responsibilities of the receiver. First, the receiver has to be attentive and receive the message. The receiver has to listen to the message properly, or he or she has to read the message attentively. At the same time, the receiver should also carefully observe the non-verbal signals that the sender might be transmitting. Next, the receiver has to decode the message. This simply means that the receiver has to interpret the message or understand the meaning of the message. After this, ask for clarification in case it is required. If the message was unclear, if something was not understood properly, the receiver has to ask the sender for additional information or explanation. The receiver can ask questions to clear his doubts. The final responsibility of the receiver is to provide feedback. Feedback is important because it helps the sender take corrective action in case of misunderstanding. Feedback has to be timely and it also has to be constructive and genuine. If the sender and the receiver both fulfill their respective responsibilities, the communication process becomes smooth and effective.